Jake said that there was a sponsor for State Farm, but all these people gave $100. We can only collect $1, so. All right, how many people were here last year for this event? Well, all of you know that whatever I'm going to tell you from now on is a true story. You guys are psyched. And last year I started out with a priest joke. And I have another one this year. I think Father who left last year, is he still here this year?
No, he left.
He left. All right. No, it's not a good thing because last year's was clean too. But this is a true story, of course, about Father O'Malley and Father Kowalski. Good place to tell both of those priests. Anyway, they were out on the highway painting up this billboard. It said, "The end is near. Turn yourself around while you still can." All of a sudden, here comes this Mustang convertible speeding up to him. Stops, pulls over, says, "Father, you guys ought to keep your preaching to Sunday masses instead of out here on the highway." He speeds off. About 3 seconds later, they hear boom, crash, bang. Father O'Malley says to Father Kowalski, "Father," he says, "that's the third one today." Father Kowalski says, "Yeah, maybe we should have just put on that sign, bridge out." Speaking of a priest joke, I got to tell them about the nuns too, of course. Sister Mary Jane and Sister Teresa Ann went into this liquor store. "Give me a fifth of Jack Daniels." Guy behind the counter, "I can't sell you a fifth of Jack Daniels, you're nuns." "Oh, no, it's not for us, mister, it's for Mother Superior. She's constipated." So the guy says, "Okay," sells him the fifth of Jack Daniels. 9 o'clock that night, he closes up the store, goes out back, and here's these two nuns. And they are just laughing, giggling, and couldn't even hardly stand up straight with an empty bottle of Jack Daniels next to them. "The sister, you told me that this was for Mother Superior, not for yourselves, because she was constipated." "Well, it is. Once she sees us, she's gonna shit." The next one is also true story. Speaking of alcohol, this alcoholic, chain smoker, and a gay guy go to the psychiatrist. Psychiatrist says to the alcoholic, "You have one more alcoholic beverage, you're gonna die." Says to the chain smoker, "You have one more cigarette and you're gonna die." Says to the gay guy, "You have one more illicit act with somebody of the same sex and you're gonna die." So they leave the psychiatrist officer walking down the street. The alcoholic sees the pub. "Let's go have one beer. We'll just have one beer." The other two guys says, "You heard what the psychiatrist said." "Oh, bullets, not gonna happen." They go into the pub and they have one beer. The alcoholic has a massive heart attack and dies right there on the bar stool. Yeah, it was sad. The other two guys left and they're walking down the street. Chain smoker sees this guy light up a cigarette, takes one puff off of it, and flips it to the ground. Chain smoker stops and looks at it. The gay guy says, "You know, if you bend over for that, we're both gonna die." This is another true story. This guy was about 85 years old, and he was going to die very, very shortly, and he wanted to be at home with his family and on his last days. And one morning he wakes up and he smells these freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. And he rolls himself out of bed. He crawls to the top of the stairs. Goes hands first down the bottom of the stairs. Drags himself into the kitchen. He can smell these freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. He gets to the kitchen counter. He pulls himself up with one hand, pulls himself up with the other, and he's just reaching for these freshly baked, smelling still warm chocolate chip cookies. Just then his wife comes up behind him, slaps him in the hand and says, "Don't touch those, they're for the funeral." His younger brother was on his deathbed also. Just a very short time later. And he wanted to be home with his family also. And he knew there wasn't much time left. So he calls his wife, his son, and his daughter in a notary public to take his last will and testament. And he started a tape recorder. Says, "My dear wife, Betty, I want you to take all the high rises in the downtown area. My son, Bob, I want you to take all the apartments along the river. And my daughter, Jane, I want you to take all the townhouses on the west side of town." The notary public says to his wife, Mrs. Johnson, "You should be very proud of your husband. He must have worked very hard to accumulate all these properties." Miss Johnson says, "Properties? Hell, the asshole has a paper route." Speaking of daughters, this guy has 3 daughters. They all teenagers. They all have a date on the same night. Absolutely. God, I'm sorry. Anyway, the old man's waiting at the door for these 3 guys to show up, and here comes the first knock at the door. The old man answers the door. Kid says, "My name's Joe. I'm here to see Flo. We're going to the show. Is she ready to go?" The old man says, "I think so," and Flo comes downstairs and they go out on their date. The old man's waiting at the door, and here comes the second knock at the door. The old man answers the door. Kid says, "My name's Freddie. I'm here to see Betty. Is she ready?" The old man says, "I think so," and they go out on their date. The old man's waiting at the door, and here comes the third knock at the door. The old man answers the door. It says, "My name's Chuck." The old man took out a gun and shot him. And speaking of dates, this woman puts an ad in the paper. Says, "I'm looking for a man that will not hit me, not run out on me, and will satisfy me sexually." About a week later, she's cooking breakfast for herself. Here comes a knock at the door. She answers the door, and the guy says, "I'm here to answer your ad." She says, "Okay." He says, "As you can see, I have no arms, so I can't hit you. And as you can see, I have no legs, so I can't run on you." She says, how do you know you can satisfy me sexually?" "How do you think I knocked on the door?" And of course, this is another story about a little girl that was on an airplane. Those of you who were here last year remember one that I told, but this is a different one. Little girl's on the airplane. She says, "Mommy," she says, "big doggies have baby doggies. Big cats have baby cats. how come big airplanes don't have baby airplanes? She said, well, honey, you better go and ask that Delta flight attendant there. She goes up and says, Miss Flight Attendant, my mommy told me to ask you a question. Go ahead, honey. She says, big doggies have baby doggies and big cats have baby cats. How come big airplanes don't have baby airplanes? She says, you go tell your mommy it's because we always pull out on time. And let her explain it to you. I would guess that about at least 5 of you people are old enough in here to have grandchildren, but this elderly this elderly guy is laying on the beach on a lounge chair. Couldn't see anybody as far as he could see. He was just laying there by himself reading a book. Here comes this elderly lady, and she's in good shape also. She kind of sits by him on the beach. She wants to strike up a conversation with this guy. She says, where are you from? He says, I'm from New York. So that's funny, I'm from New York too. He goes back to reading his book. You come here often? He says, well, actually, this is the first time in 3 years since my wife died that I've been down here. She says, that's ironic. This is the first time in 4 years since my husband died that I've been down here. He goes back to reading his book. She says, do you have a place down here? He says, no. He says, but my wife and I came down here for at least 30 years, and I just forced myself this year to come down here. And he goes back to read his book. She says, do you like pussycats? He gets up off that lounge chair, goes over there and strips her clothes off, and makes mad passionate love to her right there on the beach. They get done and she says, how did you know that's what I wanted? He said, how did you know my last name was Katz? This is a true story about old Junior down in Arkansas. And I have got to put this one. True story. Down in Arkansas. Oh, gotta get it closer, don't I?
That's what she said.
Thank you, John. Thank you. This guy down in Arkansas goes to the doctor. He says, Doc, my cousin and I, we got 8 children together. Can't afford no more children. What can you do? He said, well, down here in Arkansas, we do have this thing called a vasectomy. But it's expensive. Well, Doc, he says, I got 8 children, I ain't got a lot of money. He says, all right, there's a less expensive way to do it. And old Junior says, that's me. He says, all right, Junior, you go home. You drink your can of Coors Light. And you take a cherry bomb. Put it inside that empty can. Put it up to your ear and count to 10. Old Junior says, now, Doc, I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. But there ain't no way that that's going to give you one of them there vasectomies. Doc says, trust me, it'll work. Just do it. Okay, Doc, I trust you. Goes home, he drinks this can of Coors Light. Takes a cherry bomb, puts it inside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Some people can see that was coming. That's okay, it's a good joke.
Coming after that one.
All right. How many of you people in here are Knights of Columbus members?
Yay.
Well, you've probably heard this one then. Because this is a
True story
about a guy that owns a gas station right here in Wyandotte. They didn't advertise it too much in the News Herald, but it was in one of those corners. And he wanted to increase his business, so he puts a sign out front, free sex with Philip. But here comes this guy, and he fills up his tank, goes inside, says, I'm here for my free sex. Guy says, all right, pick a number from 1 to 10. He says, 7. Oh, I'm sorry, today the number was 9. Try again next week. So the following week, he goes in there with his buddy and fills up his tank again. Goes inside, says, I'm here for my free sex. All right, pick a number from 1 to 10. Says 3. Oh, I'm sorry, you just missed it. The number today was 2. But try again next time. Goes outside and his buddy says, hey, you ain't never gonna win. This is a scam. He says, oh no, it's not. So I'm telling you, the guy's just gonna pick a different number than what you say. He says, oh, it's not a scam. Last week my wife won twice. Does anyone have a problem with a sick joke for me to end with? This is sick. But it is not many people know this either, because it wasn't advertised much. But it was again in a little corner of the News Herald about 5 years ago. 5 years ago, a cruise ship went down in the Pacific Ocean. There was only 3 survivors, Betty, Joe, and Sam. And they floated on this raft for a couple days before they came to an uninhabited island. And they survived with fishing and hunting, but nature took its course. And Betty was having casual sex with both Joe and Sam. And after about 2 years, Betty wakes up one morning. She says, I shouldn't be doing this. I never met these guys before we came on this cruise. This is immoral, it's not right. And she committed suicide. Yeah, it was sad. It was sad. But then for the next 2 years, just Joe and Sam were out on this island by themselves. Nature kind of took its course. After about 2 years, Joe wakes up one morning. He says, Sam, what we're doing is immoral. What we're doing is not right. We shouldn't be doing this. And tomorrow, I'm gonna bury Betty.